And my friend said, well, that's a good point. He said, let me try to bring up a small example, he said. Because even a small example may signify a much larger event. Or a much larger development, he said. Large developments are to be measured by small events. And he said that in his math course he was allowed to use calculators for some calculations, given that the calculations were difficult. But he said that he himself preferred not to use one, and that most people, in fact, in his class did. And he said, well, I figured, well, it gives my mind an exercise, and of course it is doable. Calculators did not exist for the scientists a century ago, he said. So they're basically losing these fundamental ideas to technology and making life convenient. And he says, suppose technology fails one day, he says, I guarantee people won't be even able to remember simple things like multiplying, dividing, and whatnot. And common sense is dying out due to these technological advances. Well, you see, I know about people who work in an organization that help you if you get stranded with your car. If you have a car accident, people will come over to your position and try to fix your car. And the people have built special telephone poles next to the highway, so that people can go to the phone and call them up. And he said, the person who worked there, he said, I have had a lot of instances where people come crying towards this telephone booth because their car's stranded and they're desperate because they don't know where they are. They are in agony, he said. They're crying at the phone because they don't know where they are. And we all know these examples of where, let's say, people drive into the water because, for example, a famous commercial about this is where a woman is driving a car and then the navigation of the car says, you must turn left here. And as a result, she drives straight into the water. And these are very funny examples, but they signify a much larger loss of common sense on the long run. And my friend pointed out, as a scientist, he saw that common sense was dying out due to these technological advances. And I said, well, since this matter that we brought forward got you thinking, that implies that even in the top universities, in the top colleges, surrounded by the most well-educated philosophers, the most high-ranking scholars, and having the best professors, all that still does not defeat the reality of a nihilistic society. And sure, there has been nihilism and moral decay in most ages. Let us not forget the decadence in the Roman age, for example, or the cruelty that there has been in some periods, like, for example, the 20th century. So there's been nihilism, there's been moral decay in most ages. But what we tend to forget is that people are influenced and they are shaped. And today, technology has become so potent and so dominant over our lives that this nihilism creeps into everything. It is broadcasted by everything, especially by the media, to a point where it becomes irreversible. And once it becomes irreversible, people will continue to be shaped in nihilistic ways in the future. And so far, such a technological advance has never been the case so far in history. We also see that the totalitarian developments were only possible because of the media. And the media allowed the totalitarian, for example, the newspapers, or, for example, and we must remember that the totalitarianism was only possible because, for example, the newspapers that they had, or the radio broadcasts. And my friend responded to this. He thought about it for some time. And then he said, there's only a few scientists or engineers left that are motivated enough to go past the minimum amount of work. He says, sure, these fields are tough, But all this lack of inspiration and lack of willpower, it's doing exactly what you're saying. He told me how the things I described, that he saw them around himself from day to day. And I thought that he, being a top-ranked engineer with a high wage in his future, would it not be much more straightforward to assume that he would be more occupied with progress and innovation than with inspiration and willpower? And to this he said to me, I'm more concerned with my individual will. If my morals and values are straight, my progress as an engineer will be straight. He said, I'm concerned with my individual willpower, my own strength of will. And if my morals and my values are not straight, then my progress as an engineer would be meaningless. That's what he told me. And I asked him, well, how have you come to realize that? And he said, well, I'm an observer and learn from my mistakes, and I learn from other people making mistakes, and I see many students who might be the most brilliant students, but they lack fundamental reasoning. Hey, they might be able to solve a physics problem, he said, but how do they know what to do with this in order to maximize their contribution to society? He says, probably not. They're more concerned about money. And he told me how he gave lessons to some people who fell behind in the course, and he gave math lessons to some people. And in the end, it turned out that he came across a student who had totally no talent for math and no talent for physics. But still he persevered, and he kept wanting to do those lessons. And then my friend said, well, he said, you're so demotivated in everything, but still you're coming to the lesson. So if you're not motivated to do this, and if you have no talent for this, then why do you continue to do it? And he said to my friend, the guy who he was educating, he said, well, you're right, I don't have talent for math, and I don't find it interesting either, but I need to do this so that I can, in my future, make a high wage and make a high living and make a high income, because I want to earn a lot of money when I grow up. And my friend responded to this by saying, well, that's a bad choice. That's a bad choice, because you're spending so many hours of your life in your job that if you're doing a job that you're actually not motivated to do, then you're pretty much throwing your life away. And you might as well find something that you are interested in and that you do have talent for, and do that instead, so that if you focus on what you like doing and what you're capable of doing good, you will in the end be more happier yourself, and you might also be more useful to other people that way. That's what he said to this guy. I don't know how he responded to that. He didn't say that. He also brought up another example. He knew of a doctor that he knew who had studied medicine. And he asked him one time, why have you become a doctor? And this guy said, well, I had a bet with my dad, and my dad said that I wouldn't be able to do it, so I did the medicine education, and so I became a doctor. So, simply because of some random event, people allow themselves to be put upon a certain track, or to put upon a certain profession, simply because they want to make money, or even because something as trivial as a bet. So, this got my friend thinking, and this is probably the thing that got him to enter the conversation with me, and to come towards me with these questions that he had. And my friend said, what's the point if engineers and scientists are more concerned about money than about the effect of their work upon society, even if it means destroying mankind as we know it? And I said, well, then one would ultimately, when everything is said and done, raise the question, why should the scientist not first and foremost be concerned with his own individual rewards? In the long run, would it really matter if humanity would destroy itself or die out? After all, people who are never born cannot suffer. And this is the point where we face nihilism directly. The point where even the most brilliant physicist or well-trained engineer grows silent. Because this is the point where we face nihilism directly. And when we stare into the abyss, it stares also into us.